this role. And of course, he didn't get it. So, but why are you upset with me? Tell the casting director or the director, why are you blaming me? He says, you see, you're a Parsi from Bombay. You're a Parsi from Mumbai. If I get a very important role of a Parsi in Mumbai, how would you feel? Yeah, he got a point. I said, now what are we going to do about this?
You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories we're tracking at the moment. Los Angeles braced for more confrontations between law enforcement and demonstrators protesting the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration. The US government confirms it's activating 700 Marines in the Los Angeles area. A video of an Indian student being ill-treated at a US airport is now viral. The student was handcuffed, pinned to the floor, his legs tied. The eyewitness speaks to us about this distressing incident. US-China trade talks are set to extend to a second day in London as top economic officials from the world's two largest economies sought to diffuse a bitter dispute that has widened from tariffs to restrictions over rare earths, threatening a global supply chain shock and slow economic growth. Iran has said it will soon start releasing information from a hoard of Israeli nuclear secrets it claims to have obtained. Russia has launched almost 500 drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight, Ukrainian forces have confirmed, in the largest in a string of record-breaking aerial assaults as peace talks stall. The Axiom-4 mission, which will take India's group captain Shubhanshu Shukla to the International Space Station, has been postponed by a day to the 11th of June owing to bad weather. A breakthrough in the hunt for a cure for HIV, a method for delivering anti-HIV drugs into white blood cells, has raised hopes of a permanent cure for this disease. While protesters in Los Angeles demonstrated for a fourth day against immigration raids, as US President Donald Trump's move to deploy the National Guard sparked a political clash. California has sued the Trump administration for mobilizing the troops without the state's consent, and while the president backed comments from his advisor threatening to arrest state leaders, including Governor Gavin Newsome, over these protests. The display of military might, the Pentagon also deploying 700 Marines to LA, it symbolizes the showdown the White House has been waiting for. Many are arguing as we speak. In fact, some analysts assert that Trump has made immigration a central issue and is now seizing the opportunity to spar with a Democrat-led city and depict it as lawless. Listen in to the latest update from the Associated Press.
California Governor Gavin Newsome does not want the National Guard there. He has rejected Trump's approach to the protest. He says that California can handle it on their own, and he wants to rescind their deployment. However, Trump seems not interested in listening to what he wants, and he is pushing forward. And also, he cited comments from the Los Angeles Police Chief, Jim McDonnell, who has expressed openness to having the National Guard there, most recently on Sunday, when he said that the violence is escalating, and he's open to having that help. What Trump is doing right now is very rare. It's very unusual for a president to deploy the National Guard over the objections of a state's governor. This was used during the civil rights era when the U.S. president deployed the National Guard to integrate schools in the South over the objections of governors there. But this is a far different situation, and it really shows how Trump is using the full extent of his powers to try to push his agenda forward.
Well, reports state that Los Angeles rioters are now using moving civilian cars as shields as they lob projectiles at law enforcement officers. Now, in a possible sign of further escalation, well, Newsome claims he has been informed that Trump will be sending another 2,000 National Guard troops to LA, in addition to the Marines. Listen in to Trump's latest reaction.
Gavin Newsome he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsome. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
And for a view from Washington, D.C., we have with us on NDTV Robert Moran joining us. Robert, thanks so much for making time for us. Gavin Newsome has clearly said it was un-American for the Marines to be deployed to LA. He was anyways quite miffed with the National Guard being there. Is it necessary to have Marines deployed to defend federal law enforcement? With what's unfolding currently, doesn't it present a significant operational challenge?
Well, we're about to have a long and warm summer in Los Angeles, and you can see the activity. The president is very serious about law and order. He ran on it, and I think that he is going to do everything that he can to bring law and order to Los Angeles. Look, I am not optimistic that this situation will be quickly or easily resolved. But it is actually within the president's power to call up National Guard. Your other journalist that was talking about this is also correct that normally it is the governor of a state in our federal system that requests support from the national government and from the National Guard. In this case, it's a little bit different, and you have a division of views in Los Angeles, as you reported, where you have the police chief saying, maybe it's not such a bad idea to do this to bring in law and order. And so I think we're going to see this escalate.
In fact, many analysts are not optimistic about how this plays out. And as you're warning, it will be a long and warm summer in LA. Thanks so much, Mr. Moran. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. I must also mention that the California governor has said that they shouldn't be deployed in terms of the troops and the Marines on American soil, because this is the fantasy of a dictatorial president. As far as LA is concerned, things are looking grim as we speak. We'll keep tracking the latest for you. For now, let's move on. A disturbing video of an Indian man being handcuffed and pinned to the ground by authorities at Newark Airport in New Jersey is now viral on social media. An Indian-American entrepreneur who shared the video, Kunal Jen, claimed that the incident occurred on the 7th of June when the student was scheduled to board a flight but was actually left behind. So Mr. Jen shared this video that's playing out on your screens. He described the treatment as deeply inhumane and a human tragedy. In fact, he spoke to NDTV and said that terrorists are usually treated like this. Taking note of the video, the Indian consulate in New York has said it's in touch with local authorities in this regard, and it remains committed to the welfare of Indian nationals. But listen in to what the entrepreneur Kunal Jen shared with us and described this distressing incident he witnessed. Can you actually describe the moment you first noticed something was wrong, and what exactly did you see playing out in that very moment when you recorded this?
So this is exactly what you see was there in front of my eyes, and I'm the one who's right here behind this row taking the video. And we had like about 50 people with me because I was the first one in a first class right there. So, but nobody even dared to see. The problem which I did not like about us is that we all are Indians, and we were standing in the line why we were just ignoring that fact that it was an Indian guy who was sitting there, two policemen was pinned him down, sitting on the top of it. I have never seen in last 22 years even a treatment with terrorists like this.
Right.
We have never
Mr.
seen
Jen,
this is
was
a
there
public
any
humiliation.
warning or conversation before
Well,
he
this-
was pinned down and handcuffed, or did it all happen suddenly?
The reason I think why he was pinned down because he was a little violent and because he was feeling disoriented. So I didn't know why he was disoriented. They were claiming because they were not able to understand Hindi and he was speaking like in Haryanvi accent in Hindi. So I thought that probably I can help out. So I even went there and asked one of the police officers, can I help just understanding what he is saying? And he did not allow me to do so. Then the other one of the doctors showed up and he offered the help. They did not even ask for it. What he did instead, he called more police. Because what happens when there is a patient or a guest who is violent, airlines don't allow them on the plane. So they called the pilot. Pilot showed up and the pilot said, no, we cannot take him on the plane because he is a threat to other passengers. So when that happened, they pinned him down. He was sitting there first, and they pinned him down. And then the worst part was when the other police came, there was about 7, 8 police officers showed up. I have sent one more video, you should show it. Like 7, 8 police officers showed up.
Right.
They emptied the whole queue all the way the alley from the aeroplane to the where we were there, like boarding.
All right.
And they tied his legs and hands and hold him like this, like a kid. And that moment, I literally started crying why they are doing this.
Well, moving on, Donald Trump spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The call took place as Iran is preparing its response to the US proposal for a nuclear deal and as the White House is still pushing for a Gaza hostage and ceasefire deal. In a sparse readout of the conversation, Netanyahu's office has said that the two leaders discussed Washington's ongoing nuclear talks with Tehran. This, as Iran has said, it will soon start releasing information from a hoard of Israeli nuclear secrets it claims to have obtained, as European countries actually push for a vote this week on reimposing UN sanctions on Tehran over its nuclear program. The unverified claims by Iranian intelligence of a massive leak of Israeli secrets may be designed to turn the focus away from what Iran argues is its own excessively monitored civil nuclear program. But on Sunday, Iran's intelligence minister claimed that Tehran had obtained a vast collection of sensitive strategic documents, including plans and data on the nuclear facilities. He has added that evidence would be released shortly and implied some of the documentation was linked to Israel's arrest of 2 Israeli nationals. Switching tracks, Russia launched almost 500 drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight. Forces in Ukraine have confirmed in the largest in a string of record-breaking aerial assaults as peace talks stall. Now, despite pressure from the Trump administration to work towards a ceasefire, Russia has been stepping up its large-scale barrages in recent months. That effort has further escalated since Ukraine mounted coordinated drone strikes on strategic bombers at air bases inside Russia on the 1st of June. While there were no reports of major damage and only 1 person was killed, the scale of Russia's aerial assault was the latest step in a campaign by Moscow to overwhelm and deplete Ukrainian air defenses, one with no end in sight given a lack of progress as far as peace negotiations are concerned. And with that, let's turn our attention now to home ground. Well, Elon Musk's satellite internet service, Starlink, is preparing to commence operations in India within the next 2 months after receiving its license last week, our sources have informed us. The company has finalized its pricing structure for the Indian market, setting the cost of the required satellite dish device at approximately 33,000 rupees. The monthly unlimited data plan is expected to be priced at about 3,000 rupees. And as part of its launch strategy, Starlink plans to offer a complimentary 1-month trial period with each device purchase, allowing customers to actually test the service before committing to regular monthly payments. Meanwhile, all eyes were on London and still remain to be on London because US-China trade talks were set to extend to a second day In London, as top economic officials from the world's two largest economies sought to diffuse a bitter dispute that has widened from tariffs to restrictions over rare earths, threatening a global supply chain shock and slow economic growth. Talks at Lancaster House wrapped up for the night on Monday and were set to resume on Tuesday at 10 a.m. British Standard Time. In fact, Trump says China's not easy, but the talks are going well. But the negotiations, set to continue for a second day, will end with a big, strong handshake. This is what the US National Economic Council director has said, in the clearest sign yet that Washington is open to concessions on export controls for products like semiconductors. Slipping into a very quick commercial break. Back in a moment with the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault Lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
After 2 years of the India-Canada tensions, it's the big relationship reboot. Indian Prime Minister heads to the G7 summit. Indispensable India on the global stage. Modi's multilateral momentum. NDTV live from the G7 summit in Canada.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
2003 is when Munna Bhai MBBS happens to you.
Right.
Dr. Asthana. And then in 2009 is when you become Virus in Three Idiots. And then you make a directorial venture through Mehta Boys.
Right.
It has been quite a journey.
Yes.
But these two characters were particularly those which are seen as iconic. Would you say that they reshaped your entire, acting career?
You're absolutely right. People identify me with these two characters. I have had a learning curve through a lot of other characters too, but yes, there's no denial that these two, and if I might be allowed to put in one more, was Khosla Ghosla Khurana. Because, and you're all from Delhi, right? And I was cast for that role and I was very hesitant. I went to Delhi to do some research on the character and I met a young actor over there, not young in my eyes, who said, I'm a little upset with you. I said, why? He said, I auditioned for this role. And of course, you didn't get it. So, but why are you upset with me? Tell the casting director or the director, why are you blaming me? He says, you see, you're a Parsi from Bombay. You're a Parsi from Mumbai. If I get a very important role of a Parsi in Mumbai, how would...
Turning our attention to Apple's make or break moment for AI redemption. Well, as Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference kicks off, the tech giant faces unprecedented scrutiny over its artificial intelligence strategy. The company's annual developer showcase, known simply as WWDC, has historically served as a platform for unveiling the next gen of iOS, macOS, and other operating systems. But this year's conference, it carries extra weight as industry analysts and critics demand answers about Apple's struggling AI initiatives. Our very own Hina's tech expert, technical Guruji, attended the event physically, so he has the lowdown for us. Let's go straight across to him. Gaurav, thanks so much for joining us. Let's begin with the fact that the atmosphere at the WWDC. What is the atmosphere at this year's Worldwide Developers Conference? Right, we have Gaurav with us. Gaurav, what is the atmosphere at this year's WWDC?
First of all, hello from the Apple Park right here in Cupertino, California. And if I talk about the ambience, it's pretty much like liquid glass. You can see lots of glass right behind me. Glass is one such element that Apple has in its design altogether. And now this new element coming in, all of its new software. You talk about the new iOS, you talk about the new Mac OS, you talk about the new Vision OS, iPad OS. I think it is universally present now. And speaking of the ambience, there's been lots of energy, lots of developers coming in from all over the world. And basically, as always, as with any other WWDC event, today again, it was full of energy with lots of new excitements coming in from Apple, and the announcements in total took over 90 minutes for Apple to complete. Means like lots of new software updates straight from Apple.
Gaurav, also can you highlight for us the key launches Apple talked about today?
Well, the first major highlight of the launch event was the new naming scheme now, because right now they have not been in sync, considering the latest iOS version was iOS 18, the Watch OS was a different number, the Vision OS was a different number, but now starting this year, Apple is now keeping all of them in sync to the current year. So today it was all about the iOS 26, iPad OS 26, Mac OS 26, which is named as Mac OS Tahoe, and then again Vision OS 26, Watch OS 26, and TV OS 26. Now, the first thing which was the main highlight to all these new softwares is the new liquid glass design, which gives a very consistent approach all throughout, starting from the iPhone to the Apple Watch to in fact the Apple TV experience. You talk about the new iPad experience, or in fact even in the Mac or maybe the Vision Pro, you'll have a very consistent approach. That's all thanks to the new liquid glass design. Apart from that, we have had some great improvements in Apple Intelligence. Talk about live translation for messages or calls. Well, it's pretty useful. At the same time, now we have visual intelligence to search for stuff which is present on the screen. So I think everything combined, lots new updates coming in from Apple.
Well, Gaurav, thanks so much. We'll, of course, keep in touch with you for regular updates and all the highlights from the conference.
Well, thank you.
Well, the launch of Axiom 4 with our astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla has been postponed again. In fact, it's been pushed by a day to the 11th of June. So he will be embarking on his Axiom 4 mission to the International Space Station on the 11th of June due to unfavorable weather conditions. That's pushed this liftoff by a further day. With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada. Well, the country is expected to boost defense spending to hit the NATO target earlier. In fact, Canada is to hike their defense spending to 2% of the GDP this fiscal year. Mark Carney says Canada is too reliant on the United States for defense, and the goal is to protect Canadians, not to satisfy NATO accountants. Listen in.
Our plan will help ensure that Canada is strong at home and reliable abroad. We will ensure that every dollar is invested wisely, including by prioritizing made-in-Canada manufacturing and supply chains. We should no longer send 3/4 of our defense capital spending to America. We will invest in new submarines, aircraft, ships, armed vehicles, and artillery, as well as new radar, drones, and sensors to monitor the seafloor and the Arctic.
In fact, Mark Carney has said that the action was required to ward off the multiplying threats from hostile governments, terrorist entities and cyber criminals. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking all the developments for us. She joins us live at the moment. Maha, this announcement comes as Canada is set to host Trump for the G7 summit?
Absolutely, and also before the NATO summit, which is also this month in the Netherlands. And this statement by Mark Carney is significant, coming 5 years ahead of time, because Canada was supposed to reach the 2% mark of GDP spending on defense by the end of this decade, but they've already said that they will reach that by next year. But the NATO overall is now looking at pushing this figure up to around 5% of the GDP, considering the change in geopolitical scenario that we are witnessing at the moment. But significantly, Parmeshwar, there was a statement that was made by Mark Carney, which really sums it all up. He has said that middle power nations like Canada, if they are not on the table, they will be on the menu. I think this is the security concern that is driving Canada and other countries to push up their defense spending, considering Canada has said now very openly that the oceans around it are not any longer its support, with the country just next to it, its neighbor, the US, becoming one of its biggest threats. It has to stop its reliance on the United States and firm up their own defenses. This is in that direction that this 2% GDP spending on defense should be seen.
As always, Maha, thanks so much for joining us with the lowdown. With that, let's turn our attention to the neighborhood. Well, Pakistan's debt has increased to 76,000 billion Pakistani rupees in the first 9 months of the current fiscal year, according to the economic survey, which indicated that the cash-strapped country's economy is likely to grow by 2.7% this year. However, their finance minister, who released the economic survey 2024-25, has said that Pakistan's economy has been on the path to recovery for the last 2 years. And finally, MS Dhoni, former Indian cricket captain, has been inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame. The ICC has announced that he is one of the champions who's being featured. In fact, it's an honor to be named in the ICC Hall of Fame, is what MS Dhoni has said. He further added, to have your name remembered alongside such all-time greats is a wonderful feeling, something he will cherish forever. Thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault Lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
After 2 years of the India-Canada tensions, it's the big relationship reboot